What I wanted to show you is preparing to be able to use colored pencils. It's a little bit different than what you guys have been used to when you're working with graphite, and the fact that you only have a certain number of pencils that you're working with, small number with the graphite. So there's some things that you need to work at when you're working in a group dynamic where you have multiple people sitting at your table. First one is we want to make sure that all of the colored pencils stay in the box that you're not using. So you don't want to just strew them all over the table, because yours is going to get mixed up with other people's, and you don't want that to happen. So the box that we're going to be using is the Prismacolor Scholar. They're a great box of colored pencils, and if you can see, it comes with a built-in caddy for them. So what you do is you pop open the case just like this, okay? And then when you are done, you want to go ahead and pop it back in place just like this. So what it will do is it will set up real nice so that you can get to the ones that you need. Now, you can always put those over to the side because obviously you want to make sure that your area is clean. I tend to use them where I will grab the colored pencils that I'm actually working with and keep them in one hand while I'm working, because of the fact that I can switch them out very quickly instead of having to keep going into the box. So you want to do the same thing if at all possible for you to do. Now, when we're working with colored pencils, it's a little different again than graphite, because they are wax-based pencil. Different than the graphite, much easier for the graphite to blend. So with these guys, there are a few little keys that you want to get used to when you work with them. So what we are going to do today is show you kind of a real quick blending technique for you so that you can just see how they end up working. And you're going to end up using the same blending technique when you are doing either contour work, if you're working in that aspect, or if you're just going through and blending, you know, more of a flat surface. So in this case, we're going to work at just doing the flat surface. Again, just to turn whatever I'm telling you right now into that for working with contour or shaped type area. So I'm using these three colors here, okay? The colors that I've mentioned here are 324, 322, and the yellow is 316. So remember, we're going to go ahead and write those down: 324, 322, 316. And you can write that down on your practice sheet so that tomorrow, the next day when you come in, you can go ahead and pull them out of the box quickly. You don't have to worry about, oh, is this the right color? They look relatively close. So get into the habit of doing that, not on your final, obviously, but onto your sheet that is your worksheet to try to practice on before you go ahead and do your final. Okay, now the layering works a little bit different on these colored pencils. What you're looking to do is start with your lightest area, work up to your mid-range, which is going to be this one, and then work up into your darker color. I'm using the yellow, orange, and red because yellow actually is probably one of the harder colored pencils to blend. It's one thing, it's very light. The next thing is that any color that goes with it tends to be a little bit streaky with this colored pencil set if it's not done correctly. So if you can do it with these guys, you definitely can do it with any other color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just lightly bringing down a little base color onto the paper that I'm working with, okay? I mean lightly. You're not going in real heavy. You're not going to do this kind of thing, because what happens is this is going to saturate the paper, and if that saturates the paper, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to try to go in and blend on top of it, okay? So what you want to do is go very lightly when you go in and do your blending. So you're going to start with a sort of a layering process. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do yellow, and then I'm going to drop in a little bit of my orange, which is the middle, and I'm going to go very light on that as well. Okay, and I'm going to go over the top of the yellow as I am doing this so that you can see exactly what my intentions are with it. Okay, now the yellow, when you're working with it, you'll see is a lot harder to see any of the tooth showing through of the paper, the white spots. So you will have some buildup that needs to happen with this, and I'm going to go through that in a minute. Okay, so the next step will be is, we got my orange, so my next step will be is to go back over and lay over with the red. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. Now, again, you're doing it very lightly. Don't try to overdo it. Again, not like this, because this is going to get you nowhere when it comes to colored pencil. You need to make sure that you build up slowly. Okay, so I do that. Now, this is basically our step one for the process. because when you really get going, you need to start to layer over layer over layer. So I like to use my hands to show you. So basically, if you bring in one color, you're going to layer over another color, and then you're going to layer over another color. And then what you're going to do is you're going to layer over the first color, and then layer over the second color, layer over the third color. So what you're doing is you're creating a layer over layer system of the colored pencils, because that's the only way to really build up very slowly. And this is especially if you're not using some kind of, either a liquid blender or, a clear colored pencil blender, those kinds of things, which is we just try to stay away from. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with my step 1 again. At this point here, I'm going to go a little bit darker on my yellow. Okay, and I'm going to blend a little bit into that orange that I'm working on. I'm going to go back a little bit softer here. I'm going to pull back on the pencil just a slight bit on my orange because I want it to blend really nicely into that yellow, and I don't want anything really standing out because I want to have a nice soft transition. And then I'm going to go and bring in my orange a little bit more so that some of the tooth of the paper starts to go away. And then I'm going to go back in with my red, blend over just a little bit again, and I'm going to go back in and fill over my gaps into that red area. Okay? Then I'm going to do the same thing, maybe one more time. I'm going to go use my yellow. And at this point, I'm actually using my yellow to kind of blend a little bit with the rest of the colors. And the same thing when I'm working with my orange to my red. Okay, we'll use my red to actually blend into those other areas. So it's more of a process than you do with graphite. That's definitely the case. But if you do it right, you're going to get very rich colors. So let me go ahead and show you what I've got going right here. So you get very, very rich colors when you're blending layer over layer over layer. So it's very important that you do that in any of the colors that you end up using. Okay, so it's keep that in mind while you're working. When we get to a part where you have chosen the colors that you're going to work with, work on those colors, and then we can go back into the next step, which would be to change out colors if you're going to be changing colors in your composition that you're working with. So this gives you the first step on how to go about blending. Please follow along with it if you have trouble with it. Come back and watch this video anytime that you need.